Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Victory of Light radio show. As previously mentioned on my radio shows, this is a special pre-recorded conversation question with Cobra for the prepareforchange.net people. I'm going to recommend you go there right now. And for those people who follow Cobra's portal Blogspot 2012. And of course, my website, The Promise Revealed, and anybody else who's interested in Cobra's information. We have reached out to you through Facebook, through my website, Prepare for Change, and Cobra's portal site. We've received many wonderful questions from you all, and we'll get into them in just a moment. I'd like to remind you that all of our sites do appreciate donations and help with our purchases on our products. We all work very hard, and anything you can do, if you see anything you're interested in, please get a hold of us. We'd love to help you out there. Also, I'm very happy to announce I have finalized my Mount Shasta Ascension Portal Conference in Mount Shasta, California, September 12th through the 14th. We are going to be working in the Ascended Master Healing Room. A friend of mine has made that available to me. We can seat up to 100 people. We have a technology room. We're in very close vision of Mount Shasta, California. That event is available on my website. If you look at the first banner and click on it, you can go directly to the page with the information there. I also have promo codes. If you want to sign up, use those promo codes and you will receive a discount when purchasing tickets. That conference will have James Gilliland, myself, as well as Robert Barala, Michael L. Legion, Tricia McCannon, Byron Belitzos, Alfred Lambremont Weber, Andrew Basaggio, the Jump Room Mars guy. We're going to have a wonderful, interesting conference. Lots of good information up there. We have a wonderful website called Eventbrite. It's going to take care of all the ordering for us. It's going to be a wonderful conference. And folks, we're going to be up on the mountain for half of the day of all 3 days. We're going to be doing some activations in Panther Meadows. We're going to go to Castle Lake. We're also going to have a drum circle, music, big fire circle, sky watch at a secret location, and James Gilliland has promised to bring his night watch binoculars. We'll be looking for our space family and friends upstairs to be making shows on us, and on Sunday again we will be going back to Panther Meadows. So please do consider that event. It's going to be a wonderful event, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce my good friend and wonderful emissary of light, Cobra, for our monthly update interview here on Victory of the Light. And again, I want to thank the prepareforchange.net for their hard service, and for all of you to be aware that it's a wonderful site, and for you to go there as often as possible for updates and information on Cobra as well. Cobra, welcome to my show.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you.
You are going on some conferences yourself and having some portal activations, acting as the ground crew. Would you like to please go ahead and share your website and your upcoming events, and let people know about where you're going to be first off, so people can kind of look that over while they're listening to the radio show, perhaps on the computer?
Yes, actually, in about 24 hours, I travel to Ibiza, an island in Mediterranean Sea, where we're going to have a cosmic goddess activation at the solstice. It will be a very powerful event to which we will integrate the cosmic energies with the energies of the Earth. I would say energetic merger of sky and earth, of heaven and earth, and this is the first step towards the final integration of masculine and feminine principle on this planet. As you probably know and experienced in your own life, there has been an artificial separation created by the archons, by the Cabal, and this separation needs to be healed energetically so that we can have better energetic conditions on this planet and to heal the society as a whole. And then around the 12th and 13th of July, we are going to have the first Victory of the Light conference in Taiwan. Taiwan is a very special place. I would say the main stronghold of the positive dragon societies, and there is a very strong community of light forces there, and we're going to have a very special conference for that occasion. So everybody, welcome to both places. And of course, you know my blog, Portal 2012, and you can check the updates. There's going to be quite much intel revealed after the activation of June 21st, which was not possible before. There will be some new intel revealed quite soon.
Well, this is wonderful news, Cobra. And I've been receiving many, many wonderful questions from people, and I want to thank you all for sending your questions in. They are of a higher metaphysical order and a more intelligent, I would say, genre than the average question, because those people who value the information that comes from you, Cobra, and as always, you have unique new information which is not revealed and is kind of in the nuts and bolts area of what's going on the planet. And of course, we always have the disclaimer, people have to use discernment in all information. And I'm going to go right into our questions here. We have quite a few today, and we're going to see how many we can get through. For those of you who ask personal questions, Cobra can't really answer those. He doesn't know what happened to you when you were 15 and things like that. And for those of you whose questions weren't answered last time, please understand we did have a bad connection. We lost about 20 minutes of questions due to Skype issues. We had to just leave them on the cutting room floor. We have a wonderful new setup thanks to Ricky Serafico, our sound engineer and light worker and musician. And we also have help from Danelle Glade, our wonderful financial team leader, who will be doing the transcribing. And of course, the ever-present artistic creative talent of Smalley7, who is going to be doing the YouTube on this. And we're going to try and get this out much sooner this time. Unfortunately, it probably won't be out on my site until after the Ibiza conference, but we'll be looking forward to more updates. Cobra, question number 1. NASA's announced the sun has finished her pole shift, and it said that there were now 4 poles instead of 2. This came from a Japanese observatory. Is this true, and how will this new sun affect us?
Okay, it's part of the process. The pole shift is a gradual process, and when the polarity begins to shift, there is a certain period of time that we have 4-pole situation. This usually happens just before the shift, and also just after the shift. And it's not a permanent situation. So this doesn't have any drastic influence on life on this planet. It's just a part of usual procedure of pole reversal, which happens every 11 years.
Okay, thank you. And will that be the same case at some point when the Earth possibly does have her pole shift?
Yes, if the magnetic pole shift happens, or when it happens, it can be at one phase of the process.
Okay, thank you. Another question someone has is, I guess the question is, do they have enough spokespeople ready for the event at the initial phase at this point in time?
You mean spokespeople on the surface of the planet?
Yes.
That is a little bit of a problem because the service population has been so programmed that might be a problem in the initial phases. We might not have enough people trained enough or balanced enough to handle the situation. So it will be a learning curve. So there might be a little bit difficult period first when the event happens, but this will be balanced quite fast as the intel begins to come out. But yes, the initial phase, there is a shortage of people.
Okay, so there may be a little bit of a 3-ring circus on the release of the media intel.
The intel will come out, but there will not be enough qualified people to distribute the intel.
Will they be taking over the television stations, and do they have certain information ready to release to the public?
They have information packages to release to the public, and those information packages will be given to the surface population, people who will be ready to go to TV stations and present this evidence to humanity.
Very good. Okay, another question here. Is there still too much influence on the etheric? You said last year that the event might happen before the non-physical planes are completely cleared. Is that still the plan?
It is possible, but I would say the etheric influence on humanity hasn't improved much. And this is still a big issue and is quite of a problem. But I would not comment on the plans of the resistance at which moment they will decide to trigger things, or shall we say, when it will be instructed to trigger things.
Very good, thank you. Now, a lot of people are wondering if you could make some concrete suggestions about the planning for material needs in the interim, at least until the prosperity funds are released. Some people, I've had repeated requests for, you've asked us to take money out of the banks, and they say, should we put it under our mattresses? Do we convert it into gold or silver? Will the gold or silver go down if we do that? The stock market will supposedly collapse, but what about socially responsible stock? Can you talk about the material needs that a lot of people are struggling, of course, in their finances? I have to say to those people, before Cobra answers this, there's many other people around the world struggling much more strenuous conditions than some of us. Some people do not have roofs over our heads, so we have to count our blessings. But Cobra, what do we do until the fund's released? What should they do with their money? Should they put it under mattresses?
So if you have money in the bank, take it out. You can convert it into gold or silver or land, or invest it into something, in a project that will help with the liberation of the planet. I would not suggest put it into the stock market. I would not suggest to keep it in the bank because it can be confiscated at a certain phase.
Okay, someone says, Cobra, thank you for all that you and the resistance movement are doing to help all of us. One thing I am uneasy about is the situation in Egypt. I find it difficult to see how sentencing over 680 people to death can be considered as a victory of the light, nor can I see it as a liberal process. I feel this was very quickly glossed over when Alexandra asked you about this in her last interview. Now, she knows that the Muslim Brotherhood is manipulated by the cabal.
Okay, first there were not 600 people sentenced to death or executed. It was the beginning of the process. The final number was much lower. And among those people, there were some leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood who were actually part of the cabal and part of the dark forces. I would not completely agree that with the action of the Egyptian government in executing those people, but I would say that it's part of the human nature. And also, after the event happens, many members of the cabal might be executed because that will be the will of the people.
Yes, I understand that. That's before the resistance movement, the Galactic Federation actually come in. I'm glad you made that point because that was my feeling as well. I responded to that person and I said, look, basically that's a human element. That's not the resistance movement of the Galactic Federation.
Exactly. That's the human element in this. And there will be a big need for forgiveness after the event happens because when the human masses realize what the cabal has done, they will be very angry. And there is a certain danger of projecting that anger to the wrong people without understanding what really happened.
Yes.
Suggest that everybody has a right for due process, even the members of the cabal.
Yes.
They must be stopped, but I would not suggest witch hunts against anybody at this point.
Very good. I agree with that. And that brings me to another question that someone just asked me. I wasn't going to bring it up, but it kind of leads into that. So one person, and I'm not going to comment on who or anything, but has made a statement that some Pleiadians have supposedly beamed up 11,000 minor cabal members who become cabal and are forced into that situation through bribes, through threats, or things beyond their control, and were afraid to get out of the cabal. Is there any truth to 11,000 lower cabal members being beamed up that you know of?
I would not answer this question.
Okay.
You see, there are some operations of the light forces and members of the cabal have been removed from the planet. I would not comment on the number, on the means how this was done. I can only say that there were some members of the cabal that have been removed from the planet. That's the only thing I can say.
So you've already mentioned that cabal members have been removed from the planet and taken to motherships where they look at their actions, the results, and they themselves choose to have their souls reset into the central sun, thus not violating...
They have an option. If they choose to accept the light, they are not taken to the central sun. They need to go to re-education process, and they need to do everything they can to correct the consequence of their past actions. Some members of the cabal reject that option and don't want to change over into the light, and those are taken to the central sun.
May I ask you a question? Have there been any other cabal members that have wanted to be protected by the resistance movement and the GFL and had their wishes granted?
Protected against what?
Against other cabal members.
Yes, it has happened in certain occasions, but it's a complex situation. Basically, the Archons do not allow anybody to be contacted by the light forces. It's a quarantine situation. And there are many members of the cabal that want to get out but are not allowed to get out. Not everybody is in there according to their free will.
Yes, I understand. And I guess these will have to be dealt with later. Another question here, which I had meant to ask last time, but I completely forgot. And this is a very good point. And you and I have talked about this. Some people have claimed that you've denied there are chemtrails being sprayed, but you've made this clear. But here's a question. Cobra, in Syracuse, New York, we get chemtrailed every day, several times a day, to the point that we do not see clear sky ever. Please tell me, should I consider moving my family somewhere else to save their health? Are there countries that do not spray their people? Are there states in the USA that spray less? Please forgive me for being so persistent. Thank you for the amazing work you do.
One question at a time. So first, yes, there are chemtrails. I'm not denying their existence. I'm only saying that most people, what they see are not chemtrails, are regular contrails. Yes, there are chemtrails, but they are far less spread than people think. And yes, it is good to move out of the United States because that is the country which is under most strong attack from the cabal regarding chemtrails, food poisoning, scalar weapons, and on and on. Anywhere else in the world would be better.
Okay. Now, one thing that nobody is talking about, it says that most of the beings on the planet are now infected with self-replicating, semi-robotic, non-organic nanofiber technologies coming from chemtrails and, of course, probably supplemented the foods and other things. These fibers cause pain and sickness, interfere with our rhythms. Do you know how these unnatural nanofibers can be cleared from all beings on this once beautiful planet?
Okay, there is a partial solution, the detoxification protocol that can remove that. But basically, this situation will be completely resolved after the event.
Yes, I felt the same way. I felt that these advanced technologies could be removed. You had mentioned in the last interview that there were technologies to remove this. Could you please comment on those technologies? You asked that the people force the cabal to release them now. Are these available from our current scientific standard, or will most of these technologies take place after the event through the GFL and the RM advanced technologies?
Basically, what we have, the Stardust technology, can be used to remove the source of chronic pain. It can be used to block the central nervous system, which will be done at the event for the cabal members. But it can also be used to remove the source of chronic pain. It can repair organs. It can repair DNA, cellular structure. If there is any type of structural damage to the physical body, it can be repaired in about 15 minutes with the Stardust technology. And it's a Pleiadian technology which will be available very shortly after the events. So all cases of chronic illness will be healed very shortly after the event with that technology.
This will be released to the general public unbeknownst to them?
No, it will be a very conscious and aware process. Of course, people will have to change their way of thinking and behaving because illness can be recreated with belief systems and emotional states. But whatever has happened to the physical body, that will be fixed. It needs to be a certain psychological adjustment that takes place, but I would say that in a span of a few months, most people will be healed.
Very good. Thank you for that. Another question here. How do the light forces clear the bases of aliens? Is this done with weapons or non-violently?
Okay, there were different phases of this process. When the resistance movement was clearing those bases, I would say a decade ago or so, it was done through physical battles, unfortunately. But in the last phase, it was done through Stardust technology, which blocked the central nervous system of the negative beings, and then those negative beings are teleported to the motherships, and then they have made a choice, either to accept the light or go to the central sun.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm going to go back to the implants question a little bit. In our last interview, you mentioned that the implant still remains without being removed. These are the ones that are pushed into the body at birth that are invisible and beyond our technology. I have mentioned to people, and you have mentioned to people about various technologies like the Pleiadian white laser device that I have in my site, tachyon energy that we have on our sites, can increase the body's vibratory field, and this can push out some of the, I guess I would call them lower astral parasites, but the main implant is always within the body. Is that correct? And is there any way to make a complete removal of this implant pushed in at birth?
Okay, you see, there is the etheric aspect of this, and there is the plasma aspect of this. It's quite complicated to explain, but I would say that the laser technology is the best we have at the moment on the surface of the planet to deal with those implants. The other problem is that those implants are maintained with scalar technology, which is part of the ARCO network. It's actually maintained by rotating scalar field, and that field is actually recreating that implant again.
Okay, that's what I thought and experienced, because we were utilizing in the 1980s, Fred Bell and Samyasi had given us some of these laser technologies, which utilize the sacred geometry and the crystals and the lasers. In fact, we combine them with our own positive scalar field Pleiadian technology of pyramids, which are scalar waves in conjunction with crystals and the Tesla coils, which makes the white laser device even more powerful when used in conjunction. So my experience from these devices is actually confirming what you have said, that for a period of time, the energy becomes very high. You are able to attain high states of realization. And once you're away from these technologies, these different types of feedback mechanisms kind of reintegrate themselves, and we all are dealing with this human element, aren't we?
It's not just about the human element, it's about the technology which exists. On the etheric plane, on the plasma plane, it's actually recreating the structure.
Yeah, I guess a human condition on the Earth plane at this point in time due to the technology. That's a very good point. Another question. These motherships and the Federation members that Cobra talks about, what density and dimension are they in? Our third or the fourth or next? What dimension are they in?
They are fifth dimensional beings and above that, but of course they can materialize in the physical, in the third dimension, or in the fourth dimension if they choose to, if they have a purpose to do that.
Another related question. If they are not in our same dimension, will we only be able to see them when we raise their vibration, or will they use their technology to contact us?
They can use the technology to contact human beings in the third dimension, but I would say that their energy presence is very intense. So human beings will have to do energy work to be able to maintain that presence, to survive that presence, because the energy field of an ascended being, a fifth dimensional being, is very strong, and human beings will not be able to survive a direct contact. So the energy field of the beings of light, when they will come, it will be adjusted to the human frequency, so that human beings will be able to interact at first, and then raise their vibrational frequency slowly to interact more. It will be a gradual process.
Yes, thank you. That coincides with J.J. Hurtak's information that there will be certain areas or islands of light, which he calls the Arc of the Chillicosm, where the beings from the fifth dimension and higher will be able to interact, as well as within spaceships themselves, which actually provide, I guess, kind of interdimensional areas where people from various densities and frequencies of creation can interact. And this is an important part of the transition for the Earth. Now, I've been in contact with Kailapeli, who we all resonate as a good brother there, who's back in Hawaii. And he has offered the following questions for you, and some of these are from his listeners. And his first question is, Cobra, can you please clarify who the 140,000 are, and if these are starseeds?
Yes, it's actually, I would say, a core group of starseeds, those who have chosen to come to planet Earth to transform all darkness with their light. So it's a symbolic number which actually describes a very, I would say, special task force which came to this planet through various phases of the history of this planet. Most of them came here in Atlantis and kept incarnating in various key positions in key periods of history. And now this group is here with the purpose of transforming and liberating the planet.
Okay, another question from Kailapeli, which I've received a lot of similar ones, and this was a big one up here. Okay, we have all of this talk about the ISIS or the ISIL terrorist group in Iraq. Is this another cabal type operation to stir the pot? It seems beyond coincidence that the latest incarnations of the insurgent-led revolt in Iraq is called ISIS.
Yes, the Archons have chosen that name on purpose because what they do, they take a symbol of light and try to associate it with something negative in the minds of human beings. So now this name is all over the mass media, and if somebody from the street reads about ISIS, in his mind there are images of fanatics killing people instead of a goddess of light. This is how association of the mind works. They have done the same thing. For example, the Nazis have taken the very old symbol of swastika, which actually means spiritual evolution, and turning around into a symbol of evil. The same thing happened with pentagram and some other symbols in the past. And this is what Illuminati are using. For example, the one-seeing eye, they have hijacked the symbol. It's actually a symbol of the source, and they have hijacked it and represents a symbol of all-seeing eye of the one world order. So this is how the Archons work. And whenever people see those symbols, they associate them with something negative, and so the positive energy of the symbol cannot flow through. It's an occult war which is taking place.
Yes, it's a control for the attention of people, and I've mentioned these facts many times. I feel exactly the same way. Another question from Kalapeli. Are the light forces doing anything to resolve the Ukraine situation? And is Putin working with them?
Yes, they are doing many things to resolve the Ukraine situation, but again, we have the human factor and human free will, and there are many occasions when certain individuals have not followed the guidance in the Ukraine situation. The light forces have managed to decrease the number of casualties and the scale of the conflict, but they were not able to completely remove it. And yes, Putin is supporting the agenda of the light forces, but he has also his own agenda of creating strong Russia. But I would say that Putin is, at this moment, having a much more positive role than the cabal structure, which wants to use Ukraine to promote their agenda.
Thank you. What is the current situation with the Archons and the Chimera group?
Okay, most of the Archons have lost a lot of power the last half year, and also there has been a lot of improvement. There have been operations of the light forces to decrease the power of the Chimera group, and this has been also successful to a great degree, so I will be able to release some intel soon.
Okay, a lot of people have asked about the recent death of the Rockefeller. They're wondering, is this the work of some of the white forces within the Earth's resistance movement in taking out the cabal at this point?
I would just say that this, I would say, situation happened on Friday the 13th. And Friday the 13th is the day when the Templar leader was executed.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That leaves...
This is only, there will be more to this, but this is the only thing I will say at the moment.
Okay. And this is kind of a shout out to those people who are in the Sisterhood of the Rose. A lot of people have wanted to have a clarification. How come we've never heard of the Sisterhood of the Rose or the Brotherhood, the Order of the Store? Obviously, these are esoteric groups, but has the Order Sisterhood of the Rose been around? Is this new? Or can you talk about that?
You see, we have secret societies of the light, and there are secret societies of the darkness. And secret societies of the light were secret for a reason, because otherwise they would be too exposed to the dark actions of the cabal. And Sisterhood of the Rose had to keep a very low profile in the last centuries, because you all know about the witch hunts and what was happening to women which were too bright with their light. But now it's time for Sisterhood of the Rose to be reactivated again, and this is exactly what's happening after all those centuries. And Sisterhood of the Rose was very active in certain key periods of history to bring peace and healing to humanity. They have influenced some of the Nazis to be more peaceful. They have influenced some key people during the Crusades. They were very active in ancient Egypt and on and on.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. This is one question from someone, and I can understand this type of question from someone to talk about Isis and Ishtar, or Ashtar as we know him. Many temples of the goddesses will be built after the event, is one of the quotes that you made. And one person wants to know is, are we going back into a religion? Is this going to be encouraged to worship a, quote, goddess? Will this be any different? They want to know about this kind of temple, and if this is going to be some sort of shrine or monument. It's going to come close to a church type thing. And can you explain when you mention that goddess and stuff, the difference between the ultimate creator beyond all and the various, I guess, aspects of positivity that this supreme force represents, and how that is going to be related to in these temples?
Okay, it will not be religion in the traditional sense of world. There will be no priests preaching and telling you what to do. Those temples were more like temples of light which were present on this planet in time of Atlantis, to connect with the feminine aspect of creation.
So these will basically be beautiful artistic shrines that will inspire communion with the feminine aspect of creation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I figured that. Okay, another question is, how many starseeds are there on Earth?
I would estimate about 10 million.
Okay, that's what the person thought. Now, some people have mentioned that at the time of the event, the starseeds in particular will receive healing. and that it would heal them physically in some way. Can you clarify if this is true for everyone or for starseeds, or how this might help the starseeds?
The healing process will begin at the event and will continue for quite some time. First, there will be a lot of healing because the control of the Cabal will be gone. It will release much pressure from human beings, and certain emotions will come out and be healed. Second, there will be healing of the mind because there will be a lot of intel available which is not available now. And people will have a much clearer picture of what's going on. And third, there will be healing of the body with new wonderful medicine technologies being released. But it's a process. It cannot happen overnight. For an average human being, it can take months or even a few years to heal everything. But it will be a constant improvement, not the situation we have now, where we have almost no improvement, just a constant control.
Okay, here's another question, Cobra, that I keep getting from lots of people, and I guess some of them, you have lots of posts there, and it's hard to know everything that you've said in all of your different interviews. A lot of people are new to your information, but so many people are asking the same question about Planet X, and one person here says that the Russian physicist Dr. Sergei Sal said that any talk of Planet X is disinformation and used to generate fear in public. And of course, there's many other people talking about, dwarf suns, planets, etc. Can you please comment again?
Okay, I've said this many times. Yes, there is Planet X. It's orbiting the outer region of the solar system. And no, there is no Nibiru. There is no object crashing into Earth, coming closer to Earth, or having any type of danger to planet Earth.
Thank you. Can you please clarify again in regards to the Archons and the story of Anil and Anu? And can you explain a little more what their interaction was? And you've made it clear before that this is only one group of extraterrestrials that influence on the planet. So many people are feeling that they're a major influence and they're still active. Can you clarify the people from planet Nibiru and the story?
The whole story about Nibiru is disinformation. It's a fake story. It's not based on truth.
Okay, so Zecharia Sitchin's book is not based in truth.
Exactly.
Yeah, actually, this is going to be hard for some people to swallow, but Dr. Frank Strange's also, who was in contact with Valiant Thor, gave me the exact same information. He said this information is information written from text and older text, which is basically disinformation and misinformation.
Zecharia Sitchin did not translate those Sumerian texts correctly.
Okay, so you're saying that they're actually incorrectly translated.
Exactly.
Was this done on purpose?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's going to stir some pots, I'm sure. Can the etheric Archon grid be described as kind of an artificial intelligence whose primary objective is to infinitely repeatingly loop and manipulate the electrical fields of humans so as to maximize suffering and negative emotions?
Yes, it can be described as such.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Another question is, what was the effect of the G2 cloud, if any?
The light forces have protected the solar system against any possible increase of radiation. Actually, the peak of that event has passed already, and it will not have any negative effect on humanity. The only effect was energetic at the time around April and May, when the peak of that transition happened, was a very intense purification of the etheric planes and astral planes. It was a very hard time for many human beings because a lot of darkness from those planes have been purified, and consequently there were many attacks on the light workers and light warriors from those dark forces, which were losing ground at that time.
Thank you. And that is continuing at this point in time. There seems to be still a lot of agitation and a lot of confusion in a lot of people, and seems to be, in some cases, some infighting amongst the people who have the same pure intent, and they seem to be pitted against each other for unnecessary reasons. This is still an ongoing.
It's still ongoing, and of course, I have said many times, people do not get provoked, and almost nobody listens to me. But it's their choice, and people will have to face the consequences of their choices, sooner or later.
Yes, and it's basically, don't take things personally. We need to move forward and understand we all have different viewpoints.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Here's another good question, which I kind of know a lot of people ask, and I think I have my feelings on this. I'm going to see if you resonate with me, but it says a lot of people are saying How come we've been allowed to evolution to where we are today with technology and knowledge, and the dark ones are so advanced in their technology? Why haven't they stopped us? Are they playing with us to letting us see glimpses of freedom and then wham, just to keep us suffering some more?
They have tried to stop the evolution as much as possible, and I would not say that this planet is technologically advanced. It's one of the most backwards planets I have experienced.
Okay, thank you. I actually have heard from other sources that I respect who state that on most planets, what we call origin planets that begin and they evolve to a species level, that when they reach a certain level of development in their tribal state, they reach a very high technological state of advancement very quickly and usually go from a tribe to actually a technology beyond us. The fact that we've had a very slow mechanical industrialization technology is actually part of the cabal. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Thank you. How is it possible to make psychic contact with the space family ships circling our planet?
Okay, it's a tricky situation because I will put it this way: you can have contact with the light forces only after you have made a contact with your own higher self. And you can only make contact with those forces, with the light forces, through your own higher self. If you don't have that contact with your own higher self and you try to make a contact with the light forces, you will most likely just get to the astral plane and the etheric plane, and of course, the archons will interfere. So I would suggest for everybody first to make direct and stable contact with your own higher self.
Thank you, Cobra. Great words of wisdom. Seek the light within, and all other things will be added unto you. The light and sound, actually, the divine sound current that's so important. Here's another good question here. Since there are 20 million resistance movement members living underground, why can't they participate in the weekly meditation in order to reach critical mass?
They, of course, do have their meditations and they have reached a critical mass for their society and they're doing just fine. But for the surface of the planet, to reach that peaceful state, the surface population needs to reach the critical mass.
Very good. Has time on the Earth been disrupted by the Cabal in any way, and if so, in what way?
Okay, the Cabal tried to disrupt the flow of time, but they were not successful because the science of time is far beyond the understanding of the Cabal, as many other things are.
Okay, thank you very much. We've had some questions about the whales and dolphins. Of course, we know that we have some negative harmonics affecting them. They're very important, as Sheldon Neidl said, to weaving the etheric network. What can we do on a 3D level and a higher level to protect and assist and save the cetaceans? And I'll have to say, on a higher level, all of the other beautiful living creatures on our Earth that are being destroyed.
On a spiritual level, you can connect them with love. And on the physical level, you can spread information around the masses what is happening to them to bring awareness. And if enough people are aware, most of the things that are happening would not be allowed to happen anymore.
Thank you very much. I have another question from a person who was really enjoyed your information and wanted to ask you, what's the part that love plays in this whole liberation of the planet?
Okay, love is the core, it is the essence of life. And when the Cabal is removed, love will be the basis of human reality again, because that is our birthright.
Clearly, the Cabal cannot stop people from loving, as we do have that ability within ourselves, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Yes. Are we going into a time when we are redefining the contrast in our world, the good and bad, light and dark, control and freedom? We seem to have created monuments to both ends that do not serve us, going beyond these kind of extreme ends to a new model of compassion, creativity, and feeling without fears. Is that what's coming forward, or we keep having these contrasts of the light and dark after the event, or was something different?
Okay, the contrast between light and dark was never intended to exist. Actually, the dark was not intentionally created. It was a result of the contingency, the random function, which was created out of the void. And when the dark forces are removed, there will be no more need for darkness to exist. The contrast which will continue will not be a polarity contrast between light and dark. It will be a natural contrast between different life experiences, which will be all of more or less of a positive nature.
Thank you. Someone wanted to ask, and this is a big continent, and I'm half Australian. I was conceived there. I have lots of family there. So what are your thoughts on Australia? They're noticing more chemtrails there. They feel like they're being handled by the cabalist government, but not as bad as America, even though it seems it's getting that way. Can you talk about what's going on in Australia?
Yes, the cabal tries to recreate Australia according to the Western model of United States and UK. They are successful to a certain degree, but Australia is still a much freer country compared to those two places.
Yeah, it's a big country, folks. You have a problem with your government, you just go out into the Nullarbor Plain. They'll never find you. Okay, it seems as though there's an enormous amount of grief on the planet, tremendous suffering on the planet with all the pedophilia, torture, and all of these things. And, of course, all of this information that's coming forward. How will people understand to integrate this aspect of our collective self on a spiritual or a more powerful dimensional level, and how we could get past this anger and outrage that comes through us as we go through these changes?
First, it will be a gradual process. It is not something that an average human being can stomach and process in a day. But great part of the healing will be when people will begin to understand that humanity as a whole has contributed greatly to what happened because they kept silent. They didn't say no. And many people knew about this and tolerated this when it is not tolerable. And now it's going to end simply because enough people are saying no and they have enough.
Very good, thank you. Someone asked, is it true that ETs can and will influence people in their sleep before and during the event? I'll answer that, yes. They say they actually influence some people in their waking life still. How is this permission given for them to do that, or is it beyond permission in some way?
It's a soul agreement. Everybody who has been incarnated on that planet and belongs to the light forces, all the light workers and light warriors made an agreement with the light forces to be assisted in the awakening process. Of course, you can cancel that agreement, but I would not recommend. Of course, it's good to have some loving help from our brothers and sisters from the stars.
I agree completely with that answer. Thank you. Here's another question. Does the banking system have to come to a screeching halt before the event? Is it possible that something is done in a gradual process, and once it's done, people will notice?
It will be a sudden reset at the event. It's not possible to transform gradually this banking system because it's simply too corrupt. It has to be reset, and the cabal needs to be put out of the banking system.
Okay. Of course, let's go back. There's a question here. People was wondering about the souls of the animals, where they come from. Why are they coming here to experience such traumatic conditions? And clearly the galactic forces know about the Holocaust and eco and genocide of actually entire species on our planet. Could you comment about the souls of these beings, how they fit into this process, and what the GFO will be doing to help them?
Okay, it's an unfortunate situation. All the live streams that are on this planet have been actually made hostage to the cabal. And the animals are not excluded to this. And of course, after the event happens, it will be a big relief for all the live streams of this planet because they will be given much loving, healing, and attention. And many of life force will be restored to their previous beauty.
Yes, and the question is also, do the Light Forces or other Galactic Federation forces have plans in place to help our world of phasing out of animal agriculture via alternative methods of food production such as replicator and other advanced methods?
Yes, of course. There might be some people who still need to eat meat, but that will be done in a much more loving and human way than it's done now. It will not be a mass industry as it is now. This will be over. This will be finished.
Right, and someone asked, how long will it take until the planet gradually becomes vegetarian?
You see, this is an individual process. Some people are already vegetarian. For some people, it will take quite some time. But the only thing I would say is that if an animal is killed for food, it's a part of a life cycle and not as a part of an industry which creates profit. It's a different story. Because some people are at the stage when they still need meat as their food intake.
Right, they have no other source of food, and some people actually still hunt on the planet, and that's how they gain their sustenance. I understand that. I'm sure that will probably bring about some feelings in people, but eventually this will be changed. The lion will lay down with the lamb. According to Sharula or Bonnie of the Inner Earth, she said that we will one day see, animals who are actually carnivores will become grass eaters. That's correct, isn't it, at some point?
Yeah, that's correct. Of course, it is the same process with human beings, but for human beings, this can take some time to adjust.
Yes. Another question is the planet ascending now? Is this a slow, gradual process, or will the ascension of the planet...
The planet is not ascending yet because it's still under control of the Archons and their technology. The ascension process will actually begin at the event.
Thank you very much. If a person dies prior to the event while the Archons are still in control of the reincarnation machinery of the Earth, or she have a chance of escaping forced reincarnation if they are prepared with the knowledge of the Archons?
It is possible. It's not very easy. It was always possible to escape that rebirth mechanism, but was never easy. And it's still not easy. But if you have that understanding of the Archons, it gets easier because you can orient yourself after the death process and you know more of what's going on.
And it seems many of the light workers probably would have agreed to the Archon control and taken the reincarnation in order to serve their fellow brothers and sisters within the Matrix. So,
okay, it's one thing to follow the Archon program. It's completely another thing to make a conscious choice to incarnate and help other beings. They're two different stories.
Yes. So some beings have had no choice but to reincarnate. Is that correct?
Yes. And for some beings, they had a plan to assist humanity, but the Archons chose their parents, for example, and this is the reason why so many of the light workers have deep problems with their parents, because they did not choose their parents. Archons chose their parents.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, that answers another question someone had. We're going to get a little more metaphysical now. Does there exist an age of the soul, and how can we know the age of the soul? Are the bad guys the older and wiser souls who gave the good ones the chance of having the experience of being lighted?
The whole concept of the age of soul is a little bit misguided because soul does not gain experience through linear time. I would rather call it the wisdom of the soul, and it doesn't have nothing to do with the age of the soul. And no, the dark forces are not wise, and they are actually very immature and very, I would say, misguided souls.
Okay, here's a hot potato. What do you think about long-standing homosexual relationships which are based on true love and without perversion? Do you think homosexuality is a perverted energy in general and projected by the Archons?
There are many different causes for this. Yes, it is possible that some people have a loving, soul-based homosexual relationship, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also true that for many human beings, this was artificially conditioned by the Archons because they want to prevent healthy male-female polarity. And especially among the Cabal members, there is a lot of homosexual behavior which has been mind programmed into them to prevent healthy relationships between male and female partners. Because, for example, if a Cabal member had a healthy relationship with a female, he would no longer be a Cabal member because he would not want to be.
Right, and that may stir up some people, but to be clear, I spoke to J.J. Hertak, and he also indicated that people have to make their own choices, and that just because there's a program and there's many other positive things that people can, of course, have loving homosexual relationships. This is correct, yes?
Yes, both things exist, as I said before.
Okay, another person wants to know, is there such thing as twin flames? And obviously twin flame means there's only one, but they want to know, can you have more? Obviously there's soul family groups, but is there such a thing, twin flames, and can you talk about that?
Okay, I will explain. Twin soul, every being before descended from a higher dimension had to split into male and female polarity, and these are the so-called twin souls. And you always have just one, but you have many soulmates, and the soulmates are beings who have the same origin. They came from the same soul family. They had the same general evolution after you have emerged as a soul group from the galactic central sun.
Thank you. That's what I agree with. I'm going to recommend people read Godfrey Ray King's books on the I Am Presence, meetings with the Mount Shasta information there. He explains that clearly. So I'm going to ask you a question based on that from my knowledge, Cobra. which I believe is true, that eventually, as the soul evolves and ascends, they will actually merge with their twin flame and actually go into a unified, kind of a dualistic being on another plane level afterwards. Is that correct?
Yes, that merger happens first. There will be a certain moment before your ascension where you will meet your twin soul, and you will then grow together and ascend together in most cases. And after your ascension, there is a certain moment when both beings merge again into one being which has completely integrated male and female polarities.
Yes, and that may be quite a long time for many people. We don't have to worry about. For some people, it may happen shortly after the event, or
it's far beyond the understanding and the level of consciousness of even the most advanced beings on this planet at this point.
That's not an arrogant statement, folks. It's just a metaphysical understanding. And believe me, I myself and many others, I won't speak for Cobra, but that type of information is told to us. And
there is so much more in evolution that far beyond the stage we are now in. So the event is not the end of evolution, it's actually the beginning of the real evolution. And there's so much more waiting for us.
Right. Here's a question. If we ascend, we still be in physical bodies afterwards, and we will be able to modify bodies.
After your ascension, you will not have a physical body anymore because you will be beyond the third dimension, but of course you can project a hologram of a body into the third dimension, but you will not be identified with that hologram. It will be just a projection of your consciousness into this dimension.
Okay. There's many different answers to this for different people, but generally speaking, for those of us on the Earth, do we have one origin planet or galaxy where we come from, or are we all just soul wanderers? Is it possible that our true home is in a light ship?
Actually, most souls have originated from the central sun of this galaxy, and some souls from some central suns of some other galaxies. And then, of course, we went through various star systems. We spent time on various planets and also a lot of time on motherships. And of course, the most of humanity has been created here on this planet and has grown and evolved on this planet.
Yes, but the soul was actually originated on the Grand Central Sun. Did they have a life there, or did they just originate and the soul was created and maybe had its first incarnation on a planet?
Actually, the Central Sun is a stargate. I would say a birthing stargate for the souls. And then souls are actually, they emerge from the galactic central sun, then they travel and they gain experience first in the central region of the galaxy, and of course then they wander to different directions.
Okay. For many people who have created pain and sorrow for us in this life, let's say the Cabal, and this is a question that some people still ask, but they're maybe not as familiar with your group. I think it's important, again, that we clear this one up. It's probably a repeated question, but for the people who've created pain and sorrow for us in this life, is this our earned karma, or is it just the same as the lives before, between, and Atlantis and now?
Okay, the whole concept of karma is an Archon creation because they want you to feel guilty for something that you haven't done, and they want you not to resist the negative actions of the Cabal. So it is not that we have done something wrong and now we are punished, or that we need to learn a lesson. The only lesson we need to learn is to say no to those creations. To the Archons, to the Cabal, to the Illuminati, we need to say no and liberate the planet.
Very good. I'm going to ask some other questions here in regards to the planetary liberation process. Who is the main overseer or director of this planetary liberation process? Commander Ashtar, the God Source? And under whose guidance are you working?
Okay, there is no boss. There are just simply different beings who have different roles in the process, and is guided from the source directly through various beings who have various roles, various functions. And I have contact with many different beings from many different dimensions. Some of them are on planet, some of them are off planet.
Thank you. You have stated that the Brotherhood of the Star is connected through Sirius through the Jupiter Command. Can you tell us something more about the Jupiter Command?
The Jupiter Command is one division of Galactic Confederation, which has its main stronghold on the main four Galilean moons of Jupiter, and is actually holding the beam, holding the Stargate for the solar system, because the energy of cosmic love is flowing from Sirius star system and is being transmitted to the four main satellites of Jupiter in the inner solar system, and that's their function. What they do, what the Jupiter Command does, it actually sends rays of love and light to the famous symbolic group of 144,000 light workers, light warriors, star seeds, whatever you name them, to awaken them and prepare them for the mission to liberate the planet.
Okay, thank you. This is kind of a personal question, but it can be used by many people, I think. There are people now who are totally in the dark, doing bad things against their brothers and sisters, not just getting upset and taking things personally. Will they get some healing after the event? Will they be enlightened? Is forgiveness for everybody? Will every bad person involved in things have to apologize?
As I said before, those who have done bad things, they will have two choices. To accept the light, they will get forgiveness, but they will have to correct their past actions. So it is not that everything will just suddenly okay. They will have to go through a certain alignment process. They will have to work very actively to correct what they have done. And this can sometimes take years or even lifetimes. And those who will not be able or who will refuse to accept the light, they will be taken to the central sun.
Very good. One person asks how they can energetically break the control grid of a very manipulative, psychopathic, or let's call them Archon-controlled person who's trying to block them from others and stuff. Are there any special exercises or tricks that people can do when there is, let's just say, a very negative person trying to drain them of their energy?
Okay, first, remove yourself physically from the environment of that person. And second, there is a certain exercise which is called number 8 exercise you can find on internet, which can cut the psychic ties to that person.
Okay, I'm sure people are going to ask where that number 8 exercise is.
You can distribute to people. Okay.
Going forward, are there triangular ships called the TR-3 in the hands of the Chimera?
Yes, they had some of those craft, and now they are not allowed to fly above 220 kilometers, which is about 140 or something miles, because they would be confiscated by the light force. So they have limited accessibility to those triangular craft. They can fly through the stratosphere as of now, but also that will change very shortly. They will not be allowed to use that anymore whatsoever, very shortly.
Very good news. I've known that they still have that, and I was kind of wondering what their limitations are. It's good to hear that they're kept in a low orbit there. Are there any Cabal bases still operating within our solar system?
All the Cabal bases have been cleared from the solar system entirely, from Mars, from Moon, from asteroid belt. They are gone.
Here's a question. Okay, and my answer would be very quickly, but someone asked, you mentioned, of course, that there's many positive light force bases being prepared within the system. How long does it take to make a light base by the GFL?
A few days at the maximum.
Wow, very good. And what type of operations will be going on from those bases?
It depends on the time frame. Right now, one of the major operations is the removal of a Chimera group.
Okay. A few months back, you took a poll as to how many people are ready for the event, but when the event is supposed to happen, when it's supposed to happen, was that the purpose of that poll, and what was achieved out of that?
Okay, the purpose of that poll was to determine the opinion of the service population to the event itself. And of course, it was very important because human free will has to be respected. And actually, the results of that poll gave a green light for certain actions of the light forces, especially the removal of the Chimera group. So this has sped up the process quite dramatically. People think that it's taking too long, but it's actually going very fast. Because we are removing 25,000 years of control, 25,000 years of layers upon layers of Cabal networks.
Okay, thank you. Is it true that the higher realms don't have a free will like we have on Earth? Is it different?
It is not true. Everybody has free will in this universe.
Okay, thank you. There are star seeds incarnated to help with the ascension process. Except from the physical archons, Cabals, and Chimera group, are there also beings incarnated who came here to block the evolution of common people, just to block good influence wherever they can?
The groups that you name are the ones blocking the evolution.
Are there any positive reptilians? And I guess everyone wants to think of this as certain beings that have a certain look, and they want to hear your answer on this. Are there any positive reptilian groups? What is the process of those beings that have been liberated from the dark side and who are receiving healing? Can you speak a little about what's happening to them? Are they put on certain planets? What are they doing now?
Yes, there is a small percentage of the reptilian race who have accepted the light and they are now working together with the light forces. And yes, they have their own planets. Also in this sector of the galaxy, there are some planets who are dedicated to those reptilian forces and those beings. And those beings are now developing, especially their, I would say, higher emotional body. They are developing positive emotions under the guidance of the light forces.
Thank you very much. I have a question in regards to Orion. You had mentioned that some of the negative Archon stronghold used to be in the Orion in the Rigel system. It is also stated in many ancient texts, and according to J.J. Hurtak, some of the regions of pure light and powerful forces of creation actually emanate from the Orion system. Is that correct as well?
Yes, that is correct. Orion is a very big constellation. The distance between the stars in the Orion system can be tens or even hundreds of light years, and one segment of the Orion constellation belonged always to the light forces. And now, of course, the whole sector of the Orion has been liberated, and light forces are everywhere in the Orion system.
Okay, so there's no more dark forces in the Orion system now?
No, not anymore.
Here's a good question. Did the original human beings that had the 12 DNA strand come from Lyria or the Vegan star system?
The answer is no.
Okay, did the Anukai, as they're talked about, whether the story is true or not, did they alter the 12-strand DNA and mix the human DNA with a monkey to create a hominid species that become the 2-strand DNA of humans?
This is not exactly that happened, but yes, there has been a lot of genetic manipulation taking place, and with the purpose of shutting off higher contact for human beings to keep them controlled. But what has been described is not exactly what happened.
Right, I understand that. Okay, number 3 here, I guess, in this particular question is the ego actually what we know as the reptilian brain?
It is not exactly the same. Actually, the whole concept of ego is an art of creation. People can just forget about the whole concept and just focus on expressing who they really are and don't worry about that whole concept. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I would say that's a good point. People focus on the light and love that you are. You are an embodiment of love. The book, your Rancha book, calls the ego is that which maintains its identity in the face of change. That's your uniqueness, your I am presence, your own self-spirit spark of the creator. Here's another question here. Is Lucifer a prime creator?
No.
Okay. This is another good question, which some people have talked about, and this obviously has misunderstandings of the word ascension, but I think you can clear this up. What about the going into ascension as serving yourself and not serving others?
Okay, ascension is liberation from space-time continuum and is beyond all mind concepts of serving whom or what. It is simply being, existing, and radiating love and light.
Clearly, and it's an eternal process, folks. Ascension is constant, even if we're going backwards or stuck where we are now. No matter what, in the long scheme of things on the graph, there's always an ascension, a movement forward into greater and greater experience of love and light, no matter where you go in the universe. What exactly are the logos, the sub-logos, protai, and Metatron?
I would say there are beings on the galactic level who have emanated from levels beyond the galactic central sun and are actually guiding the evolution of certain stars, star systems, star clusters, and those are the beings who are monitoring the evolution of various sectors of the galaxy. And I would say they are angels in a very high state of evolvement.
Okay. Would you agree that in the ancient text that the Nephilim were a mixture between angels and humans, and God had not allowed this to happen, and that's why the angels who did that had to go through much pain and sorrow?
No, I would not agree with that. It's I would say a fabricated story, or I would say a doctored story. It is true there were many star races which came to this planet. Some of them were good, some of them were not so good. It is true that they interacted with humanity, but it's not, the way it is described has been doctored in a way it's described from a too moralistic standpoint of view. Actually, it was an integration and evolution process, interaction of many different races with humanity, and interaction of positive races has actually assisted humanity in speeding up the evolution of humanity, and the interaction with not so positive races have slowed down the evolution of humanity. So it's a very complex process that happened for many thousands of years.
Thank you. That's people, you can read The Keys of Enoch by J.J. Hurtak, has a lot of information on that type of thing. I want to ask you, in addition to that question, Cobra, so we have these multidimensional or various light beings. Have they had conjugal relations and physical interactions as far as creating humans on the Earth?
I would not say that the majority of star races did not interact directly with humanity, but yes, some of them did.
So some of them are space Earth women or space Earth men have physical relations with people of...
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Very good. Now, someone would like you to talk a little bit more about the history of Osiris, Ra, and Thoth. If you could give us kind of the true historical story there of that time, and if these beings are all positive, or was one of them a dark force, or more of them, or what actually happened there?
Those stories are actually a collective memory of the time of late Atlantis, when those beings were actually human beings, I would say heroes or anti-heroes who were walking on the surface of the earth. Most of them are of the positive nature. Osiris, Thoth, Ra, and Isis were of the light. Then we have the negative nature, we have Set, who was the leader of the dark forces in that period of time. And those were all beings from different star systems. Some of them were coming from Sirius, some of them were coming from Orion, some of them were coming from Pleiades. For example, Hathor came from the Pleiades, she was the goddess of light. And they were living in the collective memory of the Egyptian people simply because Egypt was a colony of Atlantis before the deluge, and people in Egypt had a collective memory of those times.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about Lemurian Atlantis and what was the process there? Why were they invaded, and why weren't they able to defend themselves? And how did such a high civilization come into conflict with Lemuria, and how were they destroyed?
Lemuria was existing far before Atlantis, and there was no war between Lemuria and Atlantis, and people don't have those facts straight because it's a long time ago and the memory has been diminished. But I would say in Atlantis what has happened is that the dark forces came from the Orion, and humanity and the beings living in Atlantis that time, they gave permission. They agreed to invite them because they were curious. They wanted to experience darkness simply out of unexperience. And that was not a wise choice. Because of that period of Atlantis, there was a lot of mind programming, experimenting with mind control, which led to the final fall of man. It led towards creating the quarantine of this planet.
Yes, and there was also some genetic trans-species experiments going on. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Some people are saying that people who have misused the empowering the Atlantean times, and that's why people are afraid of power, and this whole system is actually a repeat of the Atlantean situation. Is this our chance to, again, the person who's thinking of karma, that it works like, we have to fix that situation, which of course we have to learn?
I would not completely agree. Yes, there are similarities with the situation in Atlantis, but it's a new story. It's not going to end like in Atlantis. People have this collective memory of a cataclysm. It's not going to happen again. And yes, there are certain beings who have the same roles. For example, the leaders of the Cabal now were the leaders of the Cabal then. But now as a collective, we have much more power to change the outcome. And it's not about karma, it's about free will, it's about our decision, our collective decision. And it's also about the cosmic change of the new golden age, of the restructuring of this sector of the galaxy, which will include this planet and will liberate this planet.
Very good. I've got one or two more questions here, and I'm going to let you go here, but someone asked a question here in regards to the clearing influence of the etheric plane. You mentioned things are moving along. They wanted to know how much more is there to be done before it's safe? And does the resistance movement still think it's safe to do the event before the non-physical planes are cleared, or has that changed?
It is possible the event will happen before they are cleared, but it depends on the situation. If we have a drastic emergency on the surface of the planet, like a major planetary war happening, the event can be triggered before the non-physical planes are cleared. It's a tactical decision which will be made in the situation itself. But the progress of the clearing of the etheric plane has not progressed enough to say it's safe, because it's not yet.
Some people are talking about June 22nd as some sort of false flag intentional situation being cooked up by the cabal. Is it possible that there are any plans along this lines? I guess, and I want to ask personally along this line a more general question.
Okay, one question at a time.
Okay, my question is will there be any more major false flags allowed by the resistance movement, such as the 3/11, the 9/11, some of the major, I'm not talking maybe a schoolyard shooting, I'm talking about a major earth-shattering, huge event by the cabal. Will they allow that to happen anymore?
It's not likely that the major false flags will happen, and I would say that any type of predictions when a false flag will happen are just guessing. They have no solid evidence for that particular date.
Okay. Someone wanted to know, is this your first planetary liberation process that you've been involved in, or have you been taking part in others, in other lives and other planets?
It's not the first one, but it's definitely the last one.
That's a good. Okay, I guess I'm going to have one more question here, and or maybe two, but the one here is, what are we going to do after Ascension, and how long would you, in your personal guesstimate right now, no one's going to hold you to a time clock on it, but how long would you say until the planet will have made its ascension? Is there a final deadline point?
Okay, I will not go into details of the ascension process. I will just say that we have a 50-year time frame between 1975 and 2025, and within this window, the planetary liberation is supposed to happen.
Okay, and then got two more questions here. It says, is there an expiration date for the event?
I would not say an expiration date. I would say that there is a certain time window when the event is more likely and when it is supposed and planned to happen. And we are within that time window now.
Okay. Is it possible, after we achieve liberation, that the human free will make a wrong turn and something negative could happen here as far as the dark force?
No, because darkness will not be allowed to exist anymore.
Okay, so there was another interesting thing. A person said that, some of these ancient Indian things, and certain people, spiritualists, have said that after the current process that will be prosperity for 1,000 years. So clearly it's pretty much going to be a permanent thing, that we're going to be rewriting and understanding the true history of the Earth, and that the liberation of the Earth is definitely going to be permanent. There'll be no longer lack or prosperity. It will actually be in a completely different frequency eventually, correct?
Yes, it will be a permanent and irreversible process. When we are liberated, we will never be enslaved again. It's not going to happen.
Well, that's very positive and good news, Cobra. Again, a wonderful interview. I thank you so much for your time. You've answered a lot of questions for a lot of people. Not everyone got their questions answered here, but we're going to save some of them for the next time. And again, I thank you very much for coming on here, and it's been an honor to have you here. Thank you, Cobra.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you, Rob, for organizing this.
It's my pleasure to do every month. Victory to the Light. Once again, folks, remember, check out Cobra's website. You can find that link on my website, The Promise Revealed. It's loud and proud on the sidebar there, as well as prepareforchange.net. We hope you become involved in that. Do realize that we do have some great conferences, both Cobra and I, for those of you who like to gather in sacred sites with others and send your invocations of love and light into the planet. Thank you very much for all of you for listening. And this audio transcript will probably come out maybe a day or two before the written transcription, and then shortly after or simultaneously see the wonderful YouTube available. Thank you very much, and victory to the light to you all. Thank you, Cobra.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I hope you all enjoyed that interview with Cobra. I'd like to remind you all to sign up for my wonderful blog and newsletter on The Promise Revealed, as well as on prepareforchange.net. Keep those questions coming for Cobra. And if you have any questions for me, I'm going to actually be answering some questions on my radio show as well. In the meantime, here's another present and a gift from the talented Ricky Serapico. And this song is entitled Out There. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Cobra. And thank you, members and victory to the light.
Out there, is there anybody out there? That's all we want to know. We're looking for answers, but you tell us there's nothing to know. Way out on the horizon, just the other night, I saw something out there in full flight. Is there anybody out there across the great divide? Show us your flagship, there's nothing left to hide. We too are waiting, a wait that's free from fright. Tell us who is out there in the night. Is there anybody out there? Now the lights are getting low. Is there anybody out there? That's all we want to know. We have our reasons, we have our rights. Tell us what is out there in the night. Looking back to when we were young, our childhood dreams were full of fun. Remember when we looked up to the sky? Those rainbow dreams will never die. Those rainbow dreams will never die. Out there, is there anybody out there? That's all